Hello, and welcome to the Spiritual Solopreneur Series. Today, my guest is Eloise Burton. Eloise is a money alchemist. She helps women business owners who are open to the idea of sprinkling a little magic in with their logic in their business to let go of their love-hate relationship with money and allow more of it to enter their lives. Welcome, Eloise.
Thank you for having me, Bev. I'm really privileged to be here.
Well, thank you. And did I do okay on the intro there?
Absolutely. I
Okay,
was like, that sounds really good.
awesome. Awesome. Glad. Well, I'm really excited to talk to you about money because
Mm,
money is, of course, an interesting topic and it's an emotional topic. Some people love to talk about money and other people don't want to talk about money. And I'm sure
yeah,
you've seen both of those scenarios in your coaching business. And
absolutely.
yeah, we will talk about that. My first question for you is, I notice on your website you say that you started out as a money mess and ended up as a money alchemist.
Yeah.
So, what is a money alchemist, and how did you get from the that end of the spectrum to this end of the spectrum?
Yeah, so a money alchemist is the opposite of a money mess. A money alchemist is someone who is very realistic, but also very magical and understands her power when it comes to manifesting money. A money alchemist has a beautiful relationship with money and actually thinks about relationship as not as a human, obviously, but as some sort of being that they can interact with. And basically, they sleep well at night. Money alchemists sleep well at night. This is what I found. Because the opposite of that was me being a money mess. And I grew up in on the south coast of England and in a town that was at the time I was living there, it was given it's not an accolade, but it was given the title of most deprived area in England.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so you can imagine, it was not an easy place to grow up. Now we were by no means the poorest family, but we didn't have a vehicle. I had always had secondhand clothes. My parents argued every single day about money. And the wonderful thing about that was I had no idea that there was any different. Like I didn't know what poor was. Like it was just normal. We didn't have money and that was just normal. And there was clear signs of deprivation that was reflected in the education standard and things like that. And I had a complete love-hate relationship with money. I loved having it. My dad always said, "Oh, it just falls through your fingers like water." And that stuck with me. That was something that I carried in my being. That any money that I got literally fell through my hands like water. I couldn't hold on to money. It was like it was wet and slippery. I couldn't hold on to it. I In my 20s I had a house repossessed because I couldn't take responsibility for my money, or I wouldn't take responsibility for my money. Looking back, I can see now that some very minor changes in my relationship with money would have prevented that. I think you call it foreclosure over there, don't you? Would
Mhm.
have prevented the bank taking back my house. I was a single mum, so I had to put a roof over my son's head. So I started working three jobs. I have never been so poor as when I was working three jobs, but I had it in my head that I have to work harder to earn more money. But the harder I worked, the less money I had and the less time I had. Um, by the time I was in my 30s, I had £100,000 in credit card debt. Those were the good old days when they'd give you credit cards for anything.
They would let you get it that far.
Yeah. And but the scary thing is, Bev, that £100,000 is a lot of money. It's probably about 120, $130,000
At least,
US
yeah.
dollars.
Mhm.
And I cannot tell you one single thing that I bought with that money. Not a single thing. I can't remember. I have nothing to show for it. And I was just like completely checked out of money. I was just like, we were separate. And I met, there was marriages, divorces, all sorts of things in the process of this. But then I finally met my current partner, fiance, getting married next year. And
Congrats.
we wanted, thank you, we wanted to move in together, and he wanted to buy, and I was like, I can't buy a house. I've had a repossession. Stays on your record, right? Once your credit rating's done, it's done, right? That was my belief. Um, we went to view a new build, a new home in a town, the next town over from where we are now, just because we were bored and we thought we'd just go and have a look at some nice new homes, see if we could. You never know. And we sat there a bit broken, probably about 10, 15 years worth of saving just to get the deposit for it. I mean, we live in the south of England. It's very expensive to live here. We could have moved up north and it may have been cheaper. But anyway, so we decided we were going to do that. We were going to spend the next 10 or 15 years saving the money for a deposit for our dream house. That's how committed we were. 9 months later, we moved into this house, which was the exact same house in the next town. And in that nine
Beautiful.
months, yeah, in that 9 months, it was like money was raining on us. It was bizarre. I still can't fathom how it happened. But what I do know is that when I connected with money, money responded. When I started paying attention to money, money responded. When I started showing respect to money, kind of like in a like a human relationship, I started treating money the way I wanted to be treated in a relationship. And it literally just came from everywhere. It was incredible. Now, we we didn't buy the house outright, we had to get a mortgage, but I managed to get a mortgage even though I had this belief that I could never get a mortgage ever again. And that was the very start of things changing for me. So that's how you go from money mess to money alchemist.
What did that look like? I mean, was there some little trigger that I feel like sometimes with these things, some little thing happens and then it cascades and it just gets better and better and better because you have a belief now. So what
Yeah.
was the thing that suddenly gave you the belief that this could happen?
Well, it was just an inkling of a belief. So the first thing we did was very practical. I love the practical stuff, but I also love the magical stuff. But the practical thing was we looked at our money. I had avoided looking at my bank accounts for decades.
Yeah.
We had conversations about money. We went through all of the things that we were spending and we thought, well, maybe we could do things different. Like we were going to the local coffee shop 2 or 3 times in a weekend and spending, it added up to about £70, cakes, coffees for the kids and us. So we spent £200 on a coffee machine. That worked out cheaper. We cut back on things, and before we knew it, the money started lasting longer than the month. Now, we were both earning good money, we had good careers, but we were always like, oh, when are our expenses getting paid? I hope they get paid tomorrow because, I need fuel for the car or something
Right.
like that. But we were always earning good money. But then this attention, this focus on money, this communication about money just seemed to like open up the floodgates for it. And that was the really astounding thing, this thing that I'd been avoiding for fear, for hatred, for disgust, for I don't even want to know about it type of thing. When I paid attention, everything changed and it was like a chain reaction. I started taking responsibility. I started looking into, you know, maybe there's some money here, found money in bank accounts that I'd forgotten about for years, just laying there. You know, people started giving us money. No one's ever given me money, but people started giving us money. I got pay rises, bonuses. The bank wrote to me and told me that I'd somehow had this payment protection insurance. And they gave me a check for £11,500. I'd never borrowed that much from them. And I was like, are you sure? And they were like, yeah, we've done our checks. I was like, are you sure you're sure? Yeah, bank the check. Incredible.
That is amazing.
So the magic happened when I took the practical steps. And I know that all sounds just absolutely crazy, but my Mark is not into spirituality at all. And he still sits there like, how? I don't even understand how that happened.
That's how you know it's magic.
Yes. Yeah.
They have
Yeah. And this is
no
what,
idea.
yeah. And this is what I say to him. You don't need to know how. You just need to be ready to receive it. You need to be open to receive it and believe in it enough, because we don't believe in ourselves. So that's one of the biggest things. We repel money by not even believing in it ourselves.
Exactly. So
I
what's
always
the
say that, sorry,
No, go ahead.
I've forgotten what I was going to say.
You always say something.
Oh, yeah, I always say, thank you. Yeah, I always say that your relationship with money is a mirror, it reflects your relationship with yourself. So if you don't have a very good relationship with money, the chances are that voice in your head is pretty cruel and mean. She's a mean girl. And that reflects in your relationship with money and vice versa. So when you start interacting with money, you feel better about yourself, and therefore money becomes easier. But also, when you work on yourself, money flows to you much better. When you're kinder to yourself, when you're not telling yourself you're not worthy, you don't deserve, when you're saying, you know what, maybe I am, that's when it starts to come to you.
That's awesome. So what would be the first step for someone who is terrified of going into their bank account and even seeing what's in there because it's probably bad news? You know, do you,
Yeah, yeah, and like it's real. The fear is real. Sometimes I just want to acknowledge that. Sometimes you're going to look in your bank account and go, "Oh, that's not nice."
that's not
But knowing that it's not good rather than guessing actually is very empowering. Now, it's hard to believe that on this side of things. And 9 times out of 10, when you look, it's not as bad as you thought it was. This is what my clients find. They have to build up to looking in their accounts, some of them. And when they do, they're like, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
yeah,
Or actually, it wasn't great, but now I know what I'm dealing with and I can go and deal with it. But the very first thing that people need to do is start thinking about money as I teach, think about money as a feminine being, as a friend. Yeah. Because when you personify money, I don't mean like, I mean when you think about money as a person, you can talk to her, you can interact with her, you're very conscious of what you're saying to her, because none of us want to be mean, so we don't say mean things about someone that's right in front of us, hopefully. um and when you start doing that, you start to notice all of the mean things that you've actually said about money in the past. Like, oh, money's not important. Can you imagine someone saying that about you? Oh no, Bev's not important. Eloise isn't important. That's quite hurtful, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah. But I don't like money. Money's the root of all evil. Ow. So the very first thing is to make a person of money. Make like a guide or a goddess. In my world, we have golden goddesses and money goddesses, and everyone's is different. But that connection with money as a being, even if it's a spirit being, helps release the fear and the worry and empowers you to look in your bank account and take action, because she's there. She's been there all your life. Money has been there for I would say, in the developed world, money has been there for us. It may have been a bit tight sometimes, but money, if we've got a roof over our head and a phone in our hand, money has been there for us, you know? And yet we're conditioned into this scarcity mindset, which I think comes from our parents and their parents, when scarcity really was true. But we live in an abundant world, you know, and it can be really hard to change that scarcity story, especially when you like me, surrounded by poverty when I was growing up. You can change that story.
right.
And
And
then when you change that story, it becomes your reality.
and it's so easy to internalize those platitudes or those slogans that you hear as a child all the time about,
Mm.
and they're really excuses
Yes.
for why it's not happening for them. So,
Mm.
like, and that gets passed on. So it's really just a matter of, look, that's not necessarily the case, and to become friends, to try and become
Mm.
friends with money as opposed to being afraid of it.
And
Um,
tell yourself, like you say, tell yourself a different story. I've just literally come off a workshop, and one of the ladies there was from Costa Rica, and she shared that she's moved to the States, and she feels like she's struggling as an immigrant. And I said, well, what if you told yourself a different story, that there are many Costa Ricans in the United States that make loads of money. Why not tell yourself that story and become one of those instead of becoming what you already think you are? You can become whatever you want to become. And we give ourselves these labels. I come from a town that was the most deprived in England. I could have stayed in that story. Or I told myself a different story. It took me a long time, but I told myself a different story, and then I stepped into that story.
hmm,
So powerful.
that's amazing. And I'm reminded of the law of attraction here,
Mm.
where if you want to visualize or have a goal or whatever it is, um, and can it be anything you want? This is something I struggle with. Can it be anything I want,
Yeah.
or does it have to be something that I feel like I can achieve?
Oh, very good question. Very good question. So, first of all, like a lot of us, especially women, we don't even know what we want a lot of the time because we daren't want. And we have this shame or guilt about wanting more than we've actually got. And yet, one of our main questions, especially when we get hit 40, I think, is this all there is? You know, why, and so we push our desires and wants down just in case this is all there is. And that stops us wanting, it stops us dreaming. And I think that is a real shame, and it's something that my clients have to work on, and I certainly have to work on as well. But in theory, and no, in theory and in practice, you can absolutely manifest whatever you desire. Okay, but I want you to think of your manifestation pathway as like a river. And if your riverbed is nice and clear and it's beautifully sandy and the water can just flow over you, the law of attraction you send out your order, the law of attraction delivers it really fast, really easily. But when we have unhealed blocks, stories, and beliefs, it's like these big rocks in a rocky river. And abundance of any form comes via the path of least resistance. But if we've got loads of giant rocks, we've got dams building up, it all gets caught. Yeah. And so the work that I teach, which is money alchemy, is about reducing the size of those rocks until they disappear. Because you may have heard this. I did a chat with a money coach who used to work for Camelot, who run the national lottery here in the UK. And she used to go out and work with the winners, the jackpot winners. And she found that most of the people that won big chunks of money, that it'd come to them like it got over their dam, but because they weren't ready for that amount of money, they actually ended up worse off in a few years. They literally just burned their money. And it's because they don't have that capacity, that belief that they're worthy of having
Right.
12 million pounds. And so you could manifest 12 million pounds down your river and the water swells up over your rocky dam. But if you receive it and you're not ready to receive it, it can leak out of you as well. So it's about clearing the path to you and being able to have capacity to hold it. And so I teach that you absolutely can manifest anything, no matter what size. But if you do that, you might freak your nervous system out.
Right.
And when you do that, like if you manifest money and then maybe you have a car accident and it's the same price, it costs the same to repair your car as it did the money that you got coming in. Yeah, you're nodding, you get that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Or you get a tax
This
rebate,
happens.
and then Yeah, you get a tax rebate and then the plumbing goes, and it's almost identical the same amount of money, isn't it? It's that we can't hold on to it. So the work I teach is we do it bit by bit. We remove a rock, and slowly it trickles towards us. So we're not overwhelmed by it. But you absolutely can manifest anything you want.
Gotcha.
Just whether or not you're ready for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the rocks in the river, following the analogy, are essentially our money blocks.
Yeah, they're blocks. They can be stories that you tell yourself. And what's really interesting is most of the time they're not even your stories. They're someone else's story that you mentioned that earlier, but you've just sort of taken on. That story is true because someone you trust told you that. And that's very common in every walk of life, isn't it? Not just money. We
Yeah.
take on other people's stories. It can be patterns as well. So many of us repeat, well, we all repeat patterns. I had a pattern of toxic relationships, and it reflected in my relationship with money. You know, I had two very toxic marriages. My relationship with money was toxic. I got into a very healthy relationship. My relationship with money became healthy as I learned to have healthy relationships. And so you might think, like, you might do this thing that I used to do. I'd pay off a credit card, and then somehow within about a week, it was maxed out again. You're like, how? Because I thought that was clear. And that's about not healing that space, not like closing it off. So we also have, I'm probably going off on a bit of a tangent here, but we have energetic zeros. So if you keep going back to the same level of debt, then you have an energetic zero of minus that number. You see what I mean? If you have a job and you can't get above, like here, for example, a decent salary would be 60 grand. If you can't get above 60 grand, you've probably got an energetic zero holding you at 60 grand. So you have to clear that, remove the rocks from the stream to go up to 70 or 80 or 100. Do you see what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah, so much stuff. So those rocks can represent so many things, but when you wear them away and remove them, it flows faster.
Exactly. Is the most common of those you find in your coaching practice, that mindset of patterns and stories? Are the stories the hardest ones to get out?
The stories are actually the easiest ones. I think when people see them and they go, oh, that's just a story. I didn't even say that to myself. Someone else said that to me. You know, like this lady I was telling you about. She has this story that immigrants in the US have to struggle. And I've definitely heard that before. Um, that someone told her that, you know. But actually, what is the biggest challenge, the hardest thing to release is our belief that somehow we're not worthy. And we link worthiness to goodness, and they're actually two separate things. Um, Worthiness is a solid state. You're born worthy. You stay worthy. It's not impacted. It is a solid state. And yet our society teaches us that if we do something bad, then we become less worthy. Actually, they're separate. And that's why it can seem like people that aren't as good as you are doing more and making more money is because they don't question their worth. They don't question their worth. They know they're worthy. They're in that solid state. They've not had the trauma or things that have happened to them that have made them doubt whether or not they're worthy. And it can be very annoying when you see people like that doing better than you.
It can.
It's like, what? This stuff's not, they've got typos everywhere, you know?
Exactly.
But it's because they have a higher level of self-worth. I'd say 99% of the stuff we have to deal with money is created from self-worth, and that it goes back millennia, particularly with women. Um, Women throughout history have been held back and made small. And, you know, you we have like the Inquisition, not the Inquisition, the witch trials and things like that, which made it very unsafe to be a woman that spoke her truth. There was women selling out other women because their families were threatened in that time. But it also happened way back in Mesopotamia when the mystery schools fell. Women have been held back, and it's not been safe for us to speak our truth. It's not been safe for us to pop our heads up. We get told as girls, don't we? Don't be shy, don't be cocky, don't be bossy, don't sit there in silence. Like, there's nothing. You're too
I
much, you're too little, you're too tall, you're too short. Like, we get told all these things, and it makes us doubt our self-worth. For the longest time, I was like, I thought I was too short. I'm 5'7", so
you
it's
thought
about
you too
100.
short?
Yeah, it's about 172 centimeters. But my family are tall. I'm the short person in my family, and so I was like, I'm too short. And then I met people who thought I was really tall, and I was like, oh my God, I'm too tall.
Yeah.
I don't know who I am. Am I tall or am I short? And then you question yourself, and we internalize all of that. And if we've ever had to earn love, then we have self-worth issues. And I think women do suffer from that a lot. And that's because society's changed a lot in the last 50 years. Everything's shifted. We're not really sure what our role is. Men aren't really sure what their role is. It's
Yeah.
all a bit messy. Um,
But
so yeah, sorry.
it's getting better, I think.
It is improving, absolutely, absolutely. But I think we have to go through a period of alchemy is my favorite thing. So we have to go through a period of what's called dissolution, and it's where all the component parts come apart and they sort of move around, and then they coagulate back together. And then that's, I think we're in the pulling apart phase at the moment, and
Mm.
everyone's sort of shifting around.
Because alchemy is, in fact, a formula, right? I mean,
Mm,
it's a
mm.
conglomeration of ingredients.
Yeah, and it's a process. There's lots of sub steps in each process, but there's about 7 steps and 3 phases generally, depending on what text you follow. But it was the precursor to chemistry. So
Mm.
it is now considered a pseudoscience, but it was actually a science. But it's the art and science of transforming one thing into another. And when you think about money, this is my favorite. Money is the ultimate alchemy. You have money, and it might not even look like money. It might look like numbers on a computer screen you tap your card and somehow money transforms. But for example, let me find something. Okay, this lotus flower incense burner. Okay, this is alchemized money, transformed money. I gave money to someone, and that money transformed into this lotus flower. I could sell it to you, and you would alchemize it back into money for me, and that money would alchemize into a
Ah,
lotus flower incense holder for you. Do you see what I mean? So if you look around your room, your books were once money, your lamps were once money, and you could sell them and alchemize them back into money. The art, you paid money for the art, or you created the art, which you paid money for the materials. So it alchemized into materials.
actually, the
This
art was given to me, but
Oh, perfect. But you could sell it. You could sell
I
it,
could
right?
probably sell it. The artist might
Yeah.
not be too happy, but I could
No,
probably
but
sell.
you get my drift here.
Yes, absolutely.
We've been trained not to see magic and alchemy all around
Mm.
us. And I think when you sort of like a cup, a mug, a telephone, a pen, a crystal bracelet, a book, it was all money at some point. Even if it was gifted to you, it was someone's alchemized it into money, from money into something. Do you see
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
And we don't see the wonder. And one of the things that there's a couple of examples of that is you walk down a tarmac road, and somehow this little flower has not only poked through, but it's broken the concrete and the tarmac underneath it. That's magic. I mean, because it shouldn't be able to do that, should it?
No,
Rainbows. Now, I know we can explain rainbows with science, but does that make them any less magical? You know?
no.
And so I think part of my work is to reawaken people so they can see the magic all around us as well. And money is so magical and so fast because money's here with us.
Mhm.
Of all the spiritual things, money's on this literally in our. If you looked around your house now, you'd find money. If you really looked, you'd find
Oh, I
money.
know exactly where there's a jar of of some
You'd find
leftover money. Yeah.
you'd find it where you weren't sure it was as well, because it's
Mhm.
literally everywhere on this earth plane, and it's like it transfers above our heads in the signals and all that type of thing. It's wonderful. I love it. So reconnecting with that magic actually just creates so much abundance for you. It makes you feel really happy as well.
Well, and I think it's a relief, if you are actually get to the point where you can have this relationship with money, you feel like it's a friend, you're not just, don't be afraid to go and you have to know your numbers, especially as a small business, right? You have to know your
Yeah,
numbers anyway. So take that step and the rest of it will magically just follow.
it does. It does. And the way I teach money is absolutely we have to pay attention to what's going out, but really focus, really double down on what's coming in,
Mm,
because we tend to know what's going out. But most people say, "Oh, I only get paid once a month." Do you? Do you only get paid once a month? What about this and what about that? And actually, when they look, they're like, actually, I had 7 paydays this month. Some of them were bigger, some of them were smaller.
mhm.
I'm like, what if you increase that to 10 or 15? What if you play this game and have fun with it at the same time?
Yeah.
Um, as it's a game I've played, and I get money coming to me every single day. Sometimes it's big chunks of money, other times it's a few pounds. But every single day, money comes in, and it's just like, how? And then I have to remind myself not to think about the how. Just let it come.
That's an interesting question because that's also part of the law of attraction that says,
Surrender.
don't worry about the how. So
Yes.
you are in agreement with that.
Absolutely. In fact, I honestly think my clients have bingo cards for me. One of them is the money's a mirror to your relationship with yourself. The other one is get out of the how.
Mm,
What we're taught, and we do magical things even in the workplace. When we are writing our annual review, we're setting goals, we're setting intentions, we're casting our intentions out into the world. But what we're taught to do in like corporate is to reverse engineer those goals. And by month one, you must have hit this target and this target and this target by month two. And what actually happens is if you don't hit that, you disconnect from the outcome overall. And that's what happens with manifesting. So if you get into the how, if you're like, yeah, but how am I going to manifest £10,000? What you do is you go, well, I need to sell 10 people £1,000 product. And then if you don't do it on the day you're meant to do it, you disconnect from it and you start pushing it away. What I say is, so I just go, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender. I have to say it sometimes every 5 minutes. Sometimes it's only once a week. But when I'm manifesting something, I try and remember to surrender it to the universe. And then my job is not to will my manifestation into being, it's to see the messages and the opportunities that the universe is showing me. Because if I reverse engineer it, I've got my blinkers on. I can't see money coming from this direction or this direction. But if I'm open to meeting someone at the bus stop who knows a guy who's got a wife who needs my help, and I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't missed the train or if I'd taken the car, you know, like we'll explain that away as coincidence
mm.
in the reality, but there's no such thing as coincidence. The universe is always conspiring for what you put out. So it's really important that we don't get in the way of that. We don't put rocks in the river just because it didn't come the way it wanted to come. I have a great example of this. I was trying to manifest my first £10,000 month. It was a couple of years ago now. And I was trying and trying and trying. That's something you shouldn't do with manifesting either. Don't try, just do. And turns out I'd actually had my first £10,000 month 3 months beforehand. But I was like, well, I don't want that £10,000 because that came from a different part of my business. I want that £10,000. So I decided I'd reverse engineered how this money was going to come in. And then I was like, I don't want that £10,000. I want that £10,000. I mean, the universe must be like,
Oi,
what? Like
who's
you
this
asked for
girl?
£10,000. I gave you £10,000, right? So when we get into the how, we don't even see money. I didn't see that I was having £10,000 a month. I didn't see £30,000. That's incredible. How could I not have seen that? And then when I did see it, I was slapping my head like, oh, oh. So yeah, unhook from the how, trust the universe, it's conspiring for you. Your job is just to notice the opportunities, notice the flow, and open up because the universe knows way better than you.
Exactly. So if someone when you take on a client, um, what's the first thing you ask for? What's the first step to
The
getting?
first step, I asked them to do my Money Magic Foundations. They're 5 small habits that are fun and only take a few minutes to do each day. And they're designed to connect you with money through taking small actions. So one of them is to go looking for money, and you put your shoes on, or you can do it in your house, and you keep looking until you find money, and you will always find money. The next one is to pay attention. So I get people to book in their diary a date with money. So money's this classy goddess. She wants some time with you, right? So put it in your diary. She's that important. That meeting has to happen. And they just jot down all of their income, all of their outgoings, and they have a little play with it. They start dreaming. Oh, well, if I could add this much, then I could do that next month or something like that. Have a little play with it. Then they need to make space for money. And this is about decluttering. But I don't recommend decluttering your whole house because that's overwhelming. Just do a drawer or a bin because the universe will fill it again. And it's metaphoric. It's like if you create a space for money, money will come in. Okay. If you just create a space, something will fill it. And one thing that I get my clients to do, and they always laugh at me, is I get them to look in their underwear drawer and throw out the holy, the ones that you wouldn't want anyone to, if you wouldn't want anyone to see them. Because all the time they're in your drawer, you're not feeling great about putting that underwear on. And feeling is manifest. You manifest through feeling. And if you create a space by throwing them in the bin, you're probably off at Walmart getting even if it's just like I don't know, a $10 pack of underwear. But when you put them on, you don't put your finger through the hole and you just feel better because they fit better and they look nicer and they're not grey. So by creating that space, you're more likely to go and buy your new underwear that makes you feel better, even if it is just cheap underwear. So we create space. I create space by throwing the rubbish out of my bin. I love fulfilling the product orders that I have in my business, but that leads to a lot of rubbish, like the envelope rubbish. Every time my bin gets full, my sales slow down because there's nowhere for the rubbish to go. So I empty my
Oh,
bin, and within about half an hour, I've sold another book, I've sold another deck of cards or a checkbook, and off we go again.
interesting. I
And
love
then, sorry,
the
there's two more just
Oh, go ahead.
quickly. So the fourth one is that they have to learn to speak kindly to money. So they have to catch themselves. It's like we get a bit addicted to gossip, don't we? And that's what we end up doing with money. We gossip about money, and one of my clients says we talk smack about her. So catching that and saying nice things instead. So instead of saying, "Oh, I don't like money. I'm not interested in money," say, "Actually, do you know what? I really like her. I want to spend more time with her." And the last one, law of attraction, gratitude, 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 gratitude for all the money you've ever had, for all the money you've got, and for all the money you're ever going to have. So sorry, I just had to finish. I love
Awesome.
those. They're amazing. You can do them every day. They're really fun
I,
to do.
I'm taking notes. And I was just going to say, I love the underwear analogy because uh, the other piece of that is you got holy underwear. And subconsciously, I think you're saying, I can't afford new you're
Yeah,
keeping these silly, holy underwears because you can't
yeah,
afford to get new, or, you don't want to spend money on new
yeah.
underwear or fancy underwear. And that's a whole mindset right there that needs to be trashed along with the
Absolutely.
underwear.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the things that come up with the speak kindly. I can't afford. We say we switch that and we say, how can I manifest the money? There's a slightly more I want to say sinister, but sinister is the wrong word. But actually, a lot of times we can't afford new underwear because we're giving all of our money to other people,
Yeah.
like kids, family, friends, things like that. But actually, you know, you are allowed to have underwear that doesn't make you feel crap about yourself. If you feel good, it's like if you have a tidy desk drawer, don't you feel great about yourself when you sit, even if you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
look in it, smug because you know your drawer's tidy. So that whole actually giving to others before we give to ourselves, that can be a real problem with manifesting money as well.
Mhm.
But yes, it's interesting, isn't it? But
It is.
holy knickers,
Holy
that's
name.
often a sign of a money relationship state.
Exactly. Um, Now I wanted to ask you about something else, but with regard to business. I know you are a self-confessed tech geek.
Yes.
What do you think about AI in business? Is there a place for that for a heart-centered or conscious entrepreneur, spiritual entrepreneur?
Yes, I believe there is. I believe there's lots of things that AI can help you with. AI helps me with automating things. It helps me with creating content. I create the content, but it actually helps me do it all in like 30 seconds rather than like 2 days. I love how to me AI is like Google and a really competent staff member stuck together.
Right.
Like you can ask it questions. Like, I've got this idea for a workshop and I want it to be about prosperity and checks and things like that. Can you come up? Can we spitball some like 10 ideas? And it chucks out 10 ideas and none of them are perfect. But then you go, oh, but actually I like that and I like that and I like that and I fit it in. So it's like doing loads of research. It's like
Yeah.
having a personal assistant that's super, super clever, you know? I think I think AI is currently in the Wild West and it will be regulated eventually. Um, I think if you don't have like it's not going to take away. So you need to be a good writer to write good posts. AI is not going to replace that, but it can help you. It can give you, it's just it's incredible. It blows my mind. The more I learn about it, the more incredible I think it is. I can see I can see how it could be used for not good stuff, but I choose to use it for good stuff. If I can get more things out there because AI's helped me automate, if I can manage my statistics better
Mm.
as a business manager and AI can feed that information to me and analyze it, like why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? And if I'm not
Exactly.
spending money on 10 staff members, I can spend it on advertising to reach more women and help more women. You know, I'm a big fan, but I do have concerns, but it's about how you choose to use it, I think.
Exactly. That
Just like any power, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when Google first came,
Yeah.
yeah, it was unregulated too.
Yeah.
The whole internet was unregulated. It'll
Mm.
sort itself out.
It will.
But just as a tool,
Mm.
can't afford not to. Well, there's that word, can't afford
Mm. Yeah.
not to take advantage of it, though.
Absolutely. And like I said, like the thing is, business moves faster now than it ever has. We're in a time you can set up a business and make money today. You can do that in one day. It used to take years and it used to cost a lot of money. And things like AI, I mean, it's not new. That's the other thing. It's not new. We think it's new because everyone's talking about it, but things like AI can speed that up for you even more, you know, and it can help you. It's just the most incredible person. I know it's not a person, but you have to ask a question and you're like, oh, this is what I miss actually about working in a job is actually having people to bounce off of. Now I do have a team and they have their jobs, but I love just sitting in my office and asking AI, what do you think of this workshop name? What would you suggest? How could I make it more hooky?
That is brilliant. I was just thinking that the other day. I was thinking about something. I thought, oh, if I was back, if this was back in the day and I was back in my job, there'd be somebody sitting right here and I could say, hey, what do you think about this?
Yeah,
Now I
you
can't
could
do
ask
that.
AI. I don't know what that says about us though, that we'd ask a machine rather than a person.
Well, the machine is made up of stuff that was created by people. So
Mm, yeah.
there you go. You can look at it that way.
I mean, it is incredible. It this era that we are living through, the internet, mobile phones, AI, this has changed at a pace that this world has never this not perhaps this world, but this form of humans have never
Yeah,
seen before.
exactly.
And I look at my son and I think he has never experienced no internet. It's never been a thing, like for him to not have internet. So when he phones me, Mum, the internet's down. He's 23. The internet's down. I'm like, and read a book. And he's like, it's panic inducing for him because it's like he's unplugged and he doesn't know. He's never experienced that in his life.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just
I hear
incredible.
him because if I can't find my phone, I go into panic mode.
Oh, see, I'm the opposite. If I lose my phone, I feel like I'm winning at life. Like I'm like, yes, I can't find my phone. This is it. This is like, because I'm quite an introvert. I know it doesn't come across like that, but I am quite an introvert. And so I'm like, no one can contact me. I don't get dragged into any rabbit holes on Facebook. I'm winning at life if I lose my phone.
I gotcha. That is true too. That is
I'm
true.
old school.
Well, Eloise, what's your parting message to leave our audience today? What's one positive thing or one message that you'd like to leave us with?
Money is there for you. And I know that you've been taught that it isn't, and that feels really true. But you can have a different reality. You can, and I'm living proof of that. My clients are living proof of that. You can embrace a relationship with money that is healthy and abundant. And like I said, we can all do it. We can all do it. And you know, really start thinking about money as a friend, a close friend that you can converse with, and that will start to change everything for you.
Awesome. That is beautiful. And where can people find out more about you and your services?
So the best place to find out about what I do is my book, and that's themagicofmoneyalchemy.com. It's a free book offer. You just pay for the shipping and handling, and
Awesome.
I send it out to you. That gives you basically all the stuff and tells you about everything that I do, and then you
Okay.
can get involved from there.
That's great. Thank you so much. I just want to express my appreciation for your time and your knowledge and your expertise and insights, man. Like, I've really learned a lot here.
Thank you for having me, Bev. I've loved it. I could talk about this all day.
Okay. Well, we'll do it again.
Yes.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye bye.